A very intense and destructive flame, typically caused by bombing, or in this situation with massive meteors in which strong air currents combined with the fire make it burn more fiercely. That is what a firestorm is, and that is what Ember does, basically causing a havoc in steel path. If any of that sounds interesting, let's quickly get into the video. Ember is a Warframe that has gotten a couple of changes recently, mostly to her energy economy. Did it make her any better? Did it make her any worse? I guess we'll have to find out by watching the video. Now, we do have two different builds. One, the first one that you're seeing right now, focused on purely nuking, or I guess firestorming, everything inside a steel path. The second one is more utility based, but you still have the awesome nuking capabilities, just a little bit less so. Before we get into anything, a like and a subscribe would be greatly appreciated, and I'm very interested in which one of Ember skins is your favorite and of what you think of the build itself. Now, let's quickly get into the passive. The passive being each enemy affected by heat within 50 meters gives you additional 5% power strength. That is very good because this is not capped. You can go as far as you possibly want to as long as you have a lot of enemies nearby. The first ability is Fireball. You basically launch a fireball and it's pretty much useless. It can charge up your Immolation meter, which we will cover, but it is pretty bad. That's why we are going to use Roar for the first build. This is where we gain more damage on our abilities and our weapons, and this is mostly for nuking. The second ability is going to be Ensnare, and you're gonna see how we're gonna use it. Basically it traps enemies and drags more enemies in, and I think you might be seeing where I'm going with that. But Immolation is the second ability. You get the Immolation meter right down there, you can see it above your abilities, and this Immolation meter charges up by using your first ability Fireball or Inferno, your fourth ability. The more you use it, the more you're gonna charge it up. Your third ability is gonna decrease it by 50% flat, so keep that in mind. Now, what does this ability actually do? Gives you damage reduction, determines the amount of damage that your fourth ability is going to do because it gives it a buff, and determines the armor strip. So you want to keep this at 90% all of the time, and with this build it's not gonna be any issue because the higher it goes, the more energy it uses up. Then we have Fire Blast. Fire Blast basically launches, or I guess he releases a heat wave, and this can fully armor strip enemies at the 90% Immolation meter, making this incredibly good. But it also reduces it by 50%, so keep that in mind, but it's gonna instantly recharge back. With your fourth ability, Inferno. Inferno launches meteors that deal back then heat damage and forces a heat proc as well, and this is very good because heat stacks basically infinitely, and every time you apply another heat proc, you're going to refresh the duration of every single last one, so that is very cool. This does scaling damage as well, and if you don't have any enemies on your screen basically looking at the ground, you're wasting no energy, so you're gonna charge up your Immolation meter, but you're using no energy. You can have a maximum of 10 enemies that are gonna use up 10 energy, which of course is influenced by efficiency, but it only maxes out to 10, meaning you can have 10 enemies for efficiency, but you can affect more enemies with Inferno, so the enemy actual rate is not capped. But I guess you guys are probably wondering what the first build looks like. We have Growing Power in the Aura slot, Prime Continuity, Transient Fortitude, Streamline, Stretch, Umbral Intensify, Healing Flame, Exothermic, Archon Vitality, and we have Cunning Drift. We also have Molt Reconstruct for health and Molt Augmented for power strength. You can change out Molt Reconstruct for Arcane Energize. I don't necessarily think you need it with this build. I haven't run into any issues, but you could be different. Now, Healing Flame and Exothermic, what do they do? Well, Healing Flame is a Fire Blast augment, so each enemy hit can heal you from 25 to 50 depending on your Immolation meter, the health, and it also gives you Overguard when you're fully healed up, so this is a very good survivability ability, or I guess mod. And then Exothermic, this is an Inferno augment. Every enemy infected by Inferno is going to have a chance of dropping energy orbs, which is going to be very nice. We want to cover the Archon Shards. We have 2 for power strength, giving me a total of 20%, and then 1 75 and 50 energy respectively, and 1 for additional casting speed. We all know how it goes. We have Madurai. He has the focus school of choice for power sling and power transfer, 40% power strength, and then 50% casting healing speed respectively. We love that, we always want to use that when we get the chance because more damage equals more nuking and more fun for you and your team. Now the weapons, you can basically use anything that you want. The only thing important from my build is, for example, the epitaph that I use, because I use this for priming enemies with viral, because viral increases the damage that enemies take through damages that attack health, heat being one of them, and it is going to basically make it them more susceptible. And the only bad thing about this is of course elements are incredibly amazing, heat is incredibly amazing, but bad against overguard. Enemy has that have overguard Eximus units, the epitaph with its charge shot is going to instantly delete it, so it's also very good for that. What you basically need is a viral that is going to help you out a lot. You can also use the Panzerwell profile if you want, you can use some other ways, but I use the epitaph. You can use anything else and have at least one weapon for damage, either a primary or a melee that has like a guaranteed chance of killing the acolyte real quick. I made top 10s, you can go check them out if you want to, and maybe you can find a new weapon to use. But the second build focuses a little bit on crowd controlling. Now with Ensnare you can drag in more enemies. You don't have Roar to give you the power strength, but you have a chance of dragging in more enemies than you could possibly do with Roar instead of Ensnare. So this could technically give you a higher bonus on your passive and higher damage values. You are missing out on the long term because you're not using Nautilus like I did in the first build. I'll show the build in just a second. But you have Panzerwell Profiler, meaning you can use basically anything other than the epitaph like I use. In my situation I still use it, but it's really good to have. But you have a little bit more damage, or sorry, a little bit less damage. The good thing is, of course, Nautilus is really good for crowd controlling as well. Hopefully they don't change them in the next update, but this is the Nautilus build that I use, and this is the Helminth build. That is the, I guess, the combination that I use. This drags in enemies really good, especially with the epitaph because of the elements and the Cordon mod, which drags in enemies, and that makes this really good. I use the Panzer. This is the Panzer build. It's plain and simple with the second build, and the differences in the two builds is basically one thing: Arcane Energize, and this is what the build looks like, and there you go. That's basically it. How are you supposed to play Ember? With the first build, you activate Roar, keep it active, and then try to use your fourth ability to gain a little bit more energy, or use an energy pizza to get you, started off a little bit, and then activate your Immolation meter, use your fourth, charge up the Immolation meter, armor strip the enemies, and then use your fourth again with Roar still active, and then you can just recharge your meter, and you're killing enemies as well, and they're dropping energy, you're picking up the energy, refreshing your stocks, and then using your Inferno again to stack up even more damage, even more heat, armor stripping with your Fire Blast, and that's basically it. With Ensnare, you just drag enemies in, you use more energy, that's why we have Arcane Energize here, and that's basically the only difference. Put in, and I guess Ensnare as many enemies as you possibly can, and it's going to be really good. And of course, get it within range for your passive. That's basically it. That's how you play Ember, and she's really good now. Did it really help her out a lot? I wouldn't say so. I mean, it did definitely help, but honestly, the best thing that helps is exothermic. Other than that, her economy seems pretty much just tiny bit better. But that has been it. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, do leave a like, a comment, and do subscribe for more. This has been your lovely host, the Gaming Weasel, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Over and out.